Can't wait for the next episode to drop? Be one of the first to listen to OZY Confidential a day early only on Himalaya. Go to your app store, download Himalaya. That's Himalaya. And then follow OZY Confidential once you're there.
They welcomed Dylan. They accepted him. And I think they treated him better than when he was a girl.
So welcome back. All right, here we are, OZY Confidential. And we got something special happening right now. Not too long ago, several months or a year. Does it make a difference? It doesn't. For you OCs out there, it can't. It can't possibly. But I got a letter. And the letter was from a woman who also happened to be a mother. And it was an impassioned letter about her life and her relationship with her son. So in a first for OZY Confidential, we're going to have the mother and the son in the studio, duo at the same time, and talking about a special kind of relationship. Forthwith, ladies and gentlemen, Karen and Dylan Barnes. Now, Karen came to me, an editor, you know, the angry, disheveled, all the common things you hear about editors are true. She came up, I want to talk about my relationship with my son. I'm like, yeah. Really, what was special about it? If they're going to make a movie about it, what's the special? What's the artful device that makes your story worth telling? She goes, well, my son Dylan used to be my daughter Erica. Sold. Thank you for taking the time to show up. This is very cool. I know you guys are jet setters.
At least I am.
Yeah, they're flying around. But we covered it a little bit before we started talking. You talked about how you got the piece to us, but what was there an origin story connected to creating the piece?
Yes. After Dylan started going through transition, I didn't get a chance to talk to some of our family members, and I felt like they might not treat Dylan the way that I wanted him treated, to be loved and accepted.
Where's his family now? Are they here? Or are they
in California.
Okay.
And so I wrote them a letter and just said, you know, here's from my heart where I'm coming from. And the response I got from them was amazing. They welcomed Dylan, they accepted him, and I think they treated him better than ever before. In my mind, they were more accepting than ever before when he was a girl.
Right.
So I thought, I've got something here. I want to make a difference for other people. Yes.
So you had actually written a letter to them and sent it before it had gotten to me.
Oh, a year before, or maybe 9 months before.
So their reaction is actually what emboldened you to
absolutely
to send it through. Now,
and one other thing, I had the opportunity to meet one of Dylan's friends who's a trans woman. And she was telling her story to me about how she didn't have family acceptance and that her mother didn't accept her as a woman. And it was it made a very, very big impact on me, and I felt very sad. And I wanted to make a difference with other parents and families.
All right. So did you tell Dylan that you were going to write the piece before you started working on the piece?
No. In fact, I kept it a secret from him. But then after I saw because I wasn't planning on doing anything with it after that one effort that I made.
After sending it to the family.
After sending it to my nephews. So So hold
it. Now, are your nephews, are they the same age as you are?
Yes.
Okay.
Almost exact.
Pretty much.
Okay. So these are people you grew up with?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I thought, like I told you, I think I have something here. So Dylan was visiting with me and I said, Dylan, I have this thing I've written and I want you to look at it because I want to distribute it and I want your permission to distribute it. And so he looked at it and he asked me for a red pen and he took my red pen and he started marking it. And I didn't know what he was doing. And I said, what's wrong? He said, your grammar is terrible. You need to get an editor. I was, okay, that's all you have to say.
So did you have any feelings of trepidation at all when she said, I'm going to tell our story as it's connected to you, to the world, or was it just like, cool?
I think I had some feeling of trepidation just because it revealed a lot of personal things. Yeah. But then I realized that I'm not embarrassed about them and that it could help other people. So, yeah. Then the trepidation went away.
I have trans friends, and it seems to me that common to their experience is them knowing way before everybody else knew.
Gosh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, so I knew when I was like 5.
Right.
But I didn't know what it was. Like, I knew that I was a boy. I knew that I was a man, but, well, I was a boy at the time. But I didn't know that that was called transgender, anything like that. And then, you know, after time of kind of society denying that in me, I learned to deny it in myself.
Right.
It was
and
like
when you say
coping.
Society, you mean the people around you as a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So family, right?
Exactly.
Friends.
Yeah. School.
Yeah.
When I was in kindergarten, probably. And, you know, I would go to the hair salon and be like, I want this boy's haircut. And I would wear boxers underneath my pants. And, you know, family members would say, like, what are you wearing? Or why are you wearing that? And it would be funny. Like, people would make fun of me for doing what I felt was naturally me. And so for me, that's where the denial came in, because it was like, oh, this is funny. This isn't serious. What I'm doing is a joke. And yeah, and I remember asking my dad at a young age, like, how do people get sex changes? I don't even know how I knew what that was. And I remember him explaining it to me, and that's it. I don't remember being like, that's a possibility for me. I just remember him telling me kind of what it was, and that's it.
So how did you process, I guess maybe I should go take a step back and ask, was the making fun of, did you perceive it to be mean-spirited, or was it casual? Like, that's a funny outfit. Or was it mean-spirited?
I perceived it as being mean-spirited most of the time. Like when I was in kindergarten to 2nd grade, I was bullied. And I think it had to do with me looking different. But, you know, lots of people are bullied for different reasons. But I was really bullied. And in 2nd grade, they made a joke about putting a bomb in my house. And then things got really serious. Yeah. And things got really serious. And I remember going to the principal's office and having like a lot of anxiety as a kid at that time. And then I remember, you know, I switched schools because my sister was going to a cooler school and I wanted to be there. It was like a hippie school. And I remember going there and still being kind of boyish. And then, you know, 4th grade came along and I was like, gotta conform now or something. And I started dressing.
You're about 9 in 4th grade.
Yeah. And then I started dressing more like a girl. I don't know. I think it was like puberty was approaching and I felt like, you know, I didn't want to miss out. You know, like I felt so other for so long that I was like, okay, I'll conform now so that I can like fit in. So, yeah. Because
I went through a period when I was growing up of I'd see a movie and I would have to dress like the character from the movie, right? Which is okay if you're seeing like Sound of Music. But when I was like 10 or 11, so I'd come into a really expensive private school dressed like Superfly, which at the time meant a maxi coat, platform shoes, a cane, a hat with a feather. My very middle-class mother says, you're not leaving the house like that. You know, I go, well, Mama, okay. So I show up in school and I was vaguely aware of people making fun of me or being amused, but I just didn't care because I knew I looked just like the guy from the movie. And in my mind, that was it. So outside of an identification, an external identification through clothes, what was happening inside your head? Like, you're like, okay, I'm getting a lot of grief for just wanting to wear what I wear, but was there other stuff happening in your head that was like kind of, that felt to you like, I know something they don't know? It's not just that I'm wearing shorts and sneakers and I'm a tomboy and that kind of stuff. Hey, anybody can see that. But was there stuff happening inside your head that other people didn't know? I mean, thoughts, feelings, ideas.
Definitely. I think after that whole bullying thing and the bomb thing, it really got to my head. And it made me go into a denial of just like, I can't be this way because it's dangerous. Like it's, and the kids were joking and they were young and like they weren't going to bomb my house. But I think I took it like really seriously at that age and just kind of internalized that as like, this is not okay. And like, in order to keep myself and my family safe, I need to be a certain way. And
so they said, we're going to bomb your house because you look like a boy.
I don't know if they said because you look like a boy, but for 2 years they bullied me. And they, I had this best friend who was a girl and they would just make up things about me. Like he's picking his nose now or like, just, and like laugh. And I just always had this audience of people who were laughing at me. That's how I felt. So I felt like paranoid.
Laughing at, not with.
Yeah. And so I felt like paranoid that if I was who I really was, that there would be like a group of people laughing at me.
Right. The podcast world is growing bigger every day, and Himalaya wants to help you navigate it. Himalaya is a brand new podcast app where you can find every single podcast you love and some future faves. Whether you're a podcaster or a fan, Himalaya's got your back. Discover personally curated playlists and show your favorite podcasters some love with Himalaya's tip jar. It's free, and it's the easiest to use. And they're adding cool new features every day. Go to your app store, download Himalaya. That's Himalaya. And don't forget to follow OZY Confidential once you're there. Now, were you aware of this? I mean, I'm a parent as well, so I know what happens at my kid's school. I'm very frequently the last to know, but you're there, holiday dinners, your day in, day out.
I knew nothing that he was getting bullied. What happened was he stopped wanting to go to school. And this was probably around the middle of first grade. Stopped wanting to go to school and said he was sick. And then in the middle of the day, all of a sudden he'd get better. And this happened many, like 3 days. And all of a sudden we thought there's a pattern here. And he wouldn't tell us why. But he told his sister. And then his sister told us. And I immediately called the principal at home. And I said, I want something done about this. This is not okay with me. I didn't know how serious it was for him, but it was serious for me. And the principal said, oh, kids will be kids. It's not anything to worry about. So he wanted to go to the other school, but for me, it was a must. I wanted him out of that school. And I don't think I ever knew how traumatic and how it affected Dylan until he started to go through transition and told me why he was trans. I mean, I was clueless.
Now you're walking around, you've decided now, look, it's safer, I'm 9, I gotta suppress this because I can't keep living like this, right? You do get into the cool school, right? Okay, did it continue there or not?
For a little while. I remember in 3rd grade, like you were saying how you like to dress up as characters. I would see a boy that would have something and I needed it. Like we went around shopping for this jacket.
I lived that,
that this boy had.
What kind of jacket
for
was it?
so long. It was like a Tommy Hilfiger, like puffy jacket.
Yellow.
And he was really cool. That guy he wasn't cool. He was like really smart. And I was like, I want to be him. So I started wearing what he wore. Then I remember this guy had these shoelaces that were like bungee shoelaces at the time. And I was like, I need those. And I got those. And then 4th and 5th grade came. And I don't know what happened. I just, everybody in my family knows about the headband because I like had really short hair. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to like be a girl now or whatever. And so I used this headband to like segue. Like I was growing my hair out and it made me look more feminine. So like I wore this headband for like every day for a year. And so when my family talks about it, they'll be like, the headband. like everyone knows about the headband.
But what did you think the headband was going to do?
I don't know. I was really connected to those kinds of things. Like when I really liked hats as a kid.
Yeah, me too.
And it made me feel more masculine. I think that was part of it. And when we went on like trips and I was very serious about my hat. And one time it flew off in a car in Mexico or something. The guy does a U-turn, pulls back onto the street, swipes it up for me, and I get my hat back.
Like raising Arizona.
Yeah.
On the road. That's very cool. All right. So now you're 9, you're in school, you're suppressing, but you're still making manifest in ways that are private to you, like the headband, the hat, and so on. Did you proceed apace to high school and everything's okay? All right, you've got like a comfortable suppression? No,
everything got really serious in middle school.
Okay.
Because that's when puberty started to really happen. I didn't really recognize at the time this is what's wrong. I don't want to, become a woman.
Yeah.
I just was really depressed, clinically depressed.
Yeah, right.
And it brought out a lot of a lot of behaviors that were not ideal, like self-harming behaviors.
Yeah.
And then I got, antidepressants. And then in high school, the first year was really hard for me. Yeah. And I mean, I always hung out in the theater in high school because that's where I felt comfortable. Yeah. And I only hung out with theater kids really. And then I did sports.
Yeah. Which sport?
I did lacrosse and I did track and field and water polo. I did a lot of random sports, but sports, I had a lot of body issues. I had an eating disorder. And so sports, being active was what made me feel better about myself.
So, because the endorphins and biologically it makes sense. So it seems like it's a philosophical quandary, right? Like you feel these changes. I'm becoming something I don't want to be.
Yeah.
Something not only do I don't want to be, but I cannot stop this. Was that largely what was happening?
Yeah. It was like being out of control.
Yeah.
And the fact that not just out of control, but that you're going to change into something that isn't you. I'm out of control and this isn't something I ever wanted.
But now you're in high school now, middle school. This is the internet age. So you asked your father early on about sex change. Had you started thinking about it in a more directed way, or was it just this general kind of amorphous sense of, man, I'm depressed, and maybe you're thinking that this is just kind of puberty, young person, moods thing?
Yeah, no one thought back, oh, remember that time when Dylan was dressing as a boy and maybe that's a thing and maybe he should talk about it. Mm-hmm. Not even myself. I couldn't even do that for myself. Mm-hmm. And so it was just oh, Dylan's depressed and the drugs, the antidepressants work, but there's still something wrong or there's still something missing to this equation.
Yep.
And
for a parent, especially from the generation that I came from, thinking your child could be transgender was just not even a possibility.
Yeah, right.
So she was a tomboy, and the issue she was having emotionally was just puberty. That was our logic.
Did you, going along with the tomboy piece, did you think there's a possibility that my daughter is a lesbian?
Yes, of course, because she liked women too. Yeah.
So I always knew I liked women too. When I was 5 and I was, I knew I was a boy. I was also I like women. Yeah. And so that's what I was for, in middle school I came out as bisexual. Uh-huh. And then in high school, I don't know. I used to, there are so many terms now. I was pansexual,
fluid,
fluid, queer.
I've heard omni.
Yeah. So I knew I liked women, and so I was very much in the LGBT community in high school.
In high school.
And I would have
So did this provide you some cover at this point now? Because you finally, I can be in a place where I'm not being mocked, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
No, that was really helpful. I had a lot of friends who were gay. There are a lot of gay people in the theater, so that was kind of my community. And I was in the GSA, so that was helpful as well.
Which stands for?
The Gay Straight Alliance.
Yeah, right. So,
but the Gay Straight Alliance, that doesn't necessarily include trans, but we did have a transgender person in the Gay Straight Alliance, and I knew him pretty well because he went to middle school where I went to middle school. And I went to an all-girls school. So he kind of went through that before me. And not even, I saw him and I knew I identified with him in some way. And I remember at one point I cut my hair and dyed it like he did. But I still did not realize.
You yourself did not realize.
Like why I was doing that.
It sort of makes sense to me, right? If I think about my early sexual strivings, I remember being 4 years old, 5 years old, and throwing my pencil under the teacher's desk. So I look under the teacher's desk and pick up the pencil, right? But I didn't think about that until I got to be an older adult person. I was like, oh, this is what's manifest now is a certain aspect of heterosexuality. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what I expected, but that's kind of what I was doing. So again, it makes sense that you wouldn't have gone back to say, how come I didn't see it then? How come I didn't see it then? But now you're in high school, in the GSA with somebody who's trans. You say, oh, I always liked the guy. But do you ever start to think, still not?
Still not.
Okay.
Very much in denial about it still.
Was it the laughter factor, or was it you had found your way and you figured, this is my way, I can...
Yeah, I think I was comfortable, like it was easy, you know, I had found a community that would accept me that way, and I was very like gender fluid, and I would have periods of times where I would be more butch, and then I would have periods of times where I'd be more feminine, and it would just kind of switch off like that a lot. But I think my biggest fear was of not being accepted. And I think that fear was so strong that I was able to put like my true identity on the back burner for so long because I was accepted. Yeah.
Oh, right. Because of course, college comes with built-in communities, right?
Exactly. Okay. And I was surrounded, I'm surrounded by people all the time.
Yeah.
Busy. That's another thing, just being busy, like especially in high school with the SATs and getting into college, focusing on what do I want to major in. I didn't really think about myself that much.
Right, it's a great line, that Martin Scorsese line about morbid self-attention. You can think about other things, right?
Yeah.
But then you get out of college.
So then I get out of college.
Are you still, during this college period, are you still on antidepressants? Or
yeah.
Okay, so you through high school to college.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I get out of college and I'm alone more than I've ever been in my life.
What school did you go to?
I went to Pitzer College.
Yeah. Oh, my daughter's there.
Cool. Yeah. Wow, that's a small world.
Yeah. All right, so.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm alone. Yeah. Like, I've never been.
After college, you got your degree in?
I created it in Eastern and Western perspectives on mental health.
Okay.
So essentially psychology.
Yeah, right. You're 21 now.
Yeah,
right?
21, 22.
Yeah.
And I just had so much more time to focus on myself.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I went out into the world and I was like looking for a career.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And in college, like at Pitzer, in that bubble, Pitzer has people like, there are trans people, there are people going by Z, like there's they, them.
Right. It's fun. Yeah.
And it's just a bubble and it's comfortable and then I get out into the world and it's not like that. And I mean, where I was like working in Beverly Hills at a restaurant where they required you to dress like very gender specific, just like
Hooters.
No. Sorry, that's hilarious. It was just like a fancy restaurant,
nice place,
and they were like, women have to wear dresses all the time, and you have to wear makeup. And one time they made me put on more lipstick at work because I wasn't wearing enough, which was weird. And I just started to get really, really depressed, just like suicidal at this point.
This is post-graduation.
Yeah. And I was just so unhappy, and I was like, why am I so unhappy?
Yeah.
Like, and that's when I started to kind of like break down in a way, and the breakdown is what led me into the realization that I needed to start my transition.
Yeah.
And people, like by my last year of school, people like my friends who knew me, I had short hair at that time, and my friends would be like, Eric, like they'd call me Eric as like not a joke, like, but like, you're like, that's your other personality's name or something.
Right. Based on how often I hear from my kids who are in college, Were you privy to any of this? Or?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
All right.
I mean, after he got out of college and went into that first job, I knew that he was having some sort of breakdown.
You could just tell talking on the phone, or?
Oh, yeah, because we lived in L.A. temporarily for a couple of years during that time, around the time he graduated from college. And so we saw that whatever it was pretty serious, and we were very concerned.
So you knew that you were going to do something, that you had to do something before anybody else knew. How did it frame itself in your head? All right. So you're depressed, like suicidally depressed. You know something's going on. You've taken the classes, right? You knew that was your major, so you know something's going on. At what point do you go like, I gotta fix this. I can't keep living like this.
Well, I was living in a co-op with a roommate, and I had quit my job because I just
at the restaurant.
Yeah, and I was just like, I was a mess. Like, I would call my family members crying like every day, being like, I hate this. This sucks. And then I quit my job, and then I moved back in with my parents, and then I was really isolated. I started to have a lot of anxiety, and I started to have panic attacks all the time. And we probably went to the emergency room like 7 times in 1 week because I thought that I thought I was having a heart attack, and then at one point I thought I had cancer that nobody could find, which apparently is like something that actually happens to some trans people, where they think like they have a sickness inside of them. It's like a denial. Like, it's like the real sickness is that it's your body that's not right for you. But I was like, I have cancer, nobody can find it. And then, every day just started to become brutal. Like, I started to lose so much weight that it was like, well, if I don't start eating more, I'm gonna die of malnutrition. Yeah.
Stitch Fix is an online personal styling service that finds and delivers clothes, shoes, and accessories to fit your body, budget, and lifestyle. Just go to stitchfix.com/OZY, that's OZY, and tell them your sizes, what styles you like, and how much you want to spend on each item. You'll be paired with your very own personal stylist who will handpick 5 items to send right to your door. Then you try them on, pay only for what you love, and return the rest. Shipping, exchanges, and returns, always free. There's no subscription required. You can sign up to receive scheduled shipments or get your fix whenever you want. Stitch Fix's styling fee is only $20, which is applied toward anything you keep from your shipment. Get started now at stitchfix.com/OZY, and you'll get an extra 25% off when you keep all 5 items in your box. That's stitchfix.com/OZY to get started today. stitchfix.com/OZY. So, the idea makes itself known to you through this haze of depression, or you start to pull out and it becomes a secondary effect, or how does that?
Okay, so I had a really good friend, like a really close friend who had transitioned while I knew him, from Jessica to Mason. And, we were good friends, and I liked him, and I admired him for being true to himself. And I kept him as a friend, and at some point I realized, he inspired me to transition because I saw him go through it. It was really hard and it scared me, but I also knew that I had somebody, I had some kind of community. I guess part of the realization was oh, I hate my clothes. I don't want to wear these clothes. I hate my body. I have a really bad eating disorder. And I almost felt I couldn't function with the amount of time that would take me to get dressed in the morning because I couldn't pick the right clothes, or the amount I needed to work out every day to feel mentally healthy. I was this is not normal. This is not what most people have to deal with. I think I started talking to certain friends, and they started, like, one of my friends, I was talking to her and I was like, I'm just really depressed. I don't even think I told her that I was thinking about that I needed to transition or something. And she sent me a video with like Laverne Cox and was like, you should watch this, because she knew before I did, before I admitted it to myself. And I watched it and it was really inspiring. And I think as I started to watch these other people like be who they were, that is when I started to realize I can do that. And then I just started to remember the past. Like, oh yeah, it's always been this way. Oh yeah, remember that time I asked my dad about a sex change? And those things started to come back, and then I remember, and I was in therapy. And then I remember the bomb thing and they being bullied, and then I realized it all started to connect like puzzle pieces.
Yeah. So it sounds like it was much harder to get to that point for a variety of different reasons than it was. I mean, because as an outsider, you would say, well, the harder part would be I got to sit down and tell mom, I got to tell dad, I got to tell everybody. It sounds like the harder part was getting to telling yourself, right?
It was, yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of fears. There's like fear of being accepted, fear of, scars from having surgery, like fear of not loving your own self, fear of just lots of fears. I mean, homelessness, like everything that you could think of that's associated with like being a part of a minority, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. So you've come to this realization, and then I think it was based on the piece, the therapist who called you and introduced you to the topic. Is that right? Did the therapist ask you if I think it was a woman who was your therapist.
Yeah, her name's Katie.
Yeah. Did she ask you if she could talk to them?
She did.
Okay.
I remember I went into treatment and I didn't bring it up right away. It was kind of something I was like, oh, I'm going to try to get better. And then, maybe I'll bring up the transition stuff. And then at one point I felt so comfortable with this woman that I went in one day. I was just like, I'm transgender. And she was like, great.
Yep.
Let's tell your medical team. And the fact that she reacted that way was, it was life-changing, because if she had said, really? Are you sure?
Yeah.
I would have been like, I don't know if I'm sure.
Backed off, right?
Yeah. And I would have, I was already in so much denial and questioning of it myself that, like, I came out to her that day, we told the team, and then she was like, do you want me to call your mom and tell her about this? And I said, that would be amazing if you could do that. And then from that day, like, for the rest of treatment, I had to carry like a piece of paper that said, I am a man and I am transgender, because I would go into this like thought circle where I'd be like, wait, maybe I'm not. And then it would go like, oh, hey, I'm not. And like, I would deny it.
Right.
And I had to remind myself of who I really was, like on a piece of paper. And I carried it around with me in my pocket.
Was it a card or just a piece of paper?
It was like a note card, I think.
Handwritten or typed?
Handwritten.
Okay. Your handwriting? Or?
Yeah, my handwriting.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
I've never heard this before.
Oh, there you go. So now the medical team calls you.
Yeah, Katie.
Yeah. Katie and says, Dylan is trans. And your response?
Well, the first thing was, before Dylan went into this place that for therapy and stuff, and for just finding out what was going on, because there were so many things. I mean, he was dying of all these diseases. He was losing weight. He couldn't sleep. We were worried that he was suicidal. It was such a relief to put him in a place that he was going to get the services that he needed and really sort out what was going on. So maybe a day or two before we had actually checked him in, he and I were driving in the car, probably from a doctor's appointment. He said, I think I might be transgender. And I lost it, because to me, it's like, I've got this child, of course he was an adult, but to me, he's still a child. He's, I'm afraid that is he going to live till tomorrow? And so I got upset and I said, I want you to just get to the point where you can figure out what you really want and be stable and gain some weight back. And then we can talk about if you're transgender. So I think for him, that was kind of like, she's not going to accept it. But for me, it was like so beyond all the other things I was worried about with him. So when Katie called me and she told me, even though he had introduced it to me, it was like I had never heard it before. And you know that feeling where somebody tells you something horrible and your heart just seems to like go all the way into your stomach, or your stomach seems to fall out. I don't know, that feeling like. And the first thing, as I said in my article, is I felt fear. For what does this mean for him? You know, are people going to accept him? Is he going to be, is it going to be hard for him to get a job? Or, are people going to be prejudiced? Stuff like that. And what's it going to be like to go through surgery? So that was my first thought. But my second thought was, because I thought, I have to tell everybody, I have to tell family, was what are people going to think about me? Are they going to think I was a bad mother? Do they think I caused it somehow? Or, that I'm too liberal and I accepted this and I should have never accepted it. And then, of course, about, I don't know, that lasted maybe 3 minutes. And then I said to myself, Karen, that is absolute bull.
Yeah, right.
And that was it. Yeah. But I was still really upset. Yeah. And so I drove, I was on the freeway on the phone with the therapist. So I drove home, walked in to the house. My husband was in the house. I walked in to tell him, and I didn't tell him I was upset. I just told him what had happened, that I had gotten this call. And he looked at me and goes, that makes perfect sense. And I was like, what? What? You're not worried? You're not upset? And it just made me balanced and grounded. And that was the beginning.
Yeah. And so when you get home, so you're there still at therapy. When you get home, were you driving back? Were you just like, it'll be fun to see everybody? Or were you anticipating that there was going to be a little friction or just?
I was definitely worried. But I wasn't worried about my mom or my dad or my siblings. I was worried about my cousins and extended family.
Yeah. The ones that she ended up contacting.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they are a big part of our lives, and the fear was losing them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that, but I was also afraid of that they wouldn't take it seriously, because nobody had taken it seriously before this moment.
So now you deal with the issue of explaining to the family, but it seems like now the other stuff that was making life difficult for you would have started to recede, right? It's like I got a plan, right? I got this plan, and so how soon after this meeting with Katie did you start the transition?
Probably
Well, I guess you left her office with a piece of paper, right?
Yeah, so that was the beginning. Yeah. And then I had some good friends there, and they were really supportive, and they were like, you need to have everybody call you by male pronouns now, and we're going to support you, and when people don't, we'll correct them if you don't. So I started doing that. I need to think of a new name.
Did you pick Dylan, or did you let your parents pick Dylan?
I picked Dylan with some friends, and it was because of Bob Dylan. And I just felt like I really identify with Bob Dylan.
Not the guy from 9021.
No.
Okay. Thank God. All right.
He's, Bob Dylan's a Jewish, musician, and he changed the world with his lyrics, and I really admired him. So that's why I chose the name Dylan.
That's cool. So it began immediately. And how long, starting with a note, how long did it take from?
So it took about like 3 or 4 months before I went on to hormones. I was in Arizona when I was in treatment, so I came back to LA, and then I started getting information on where I could go to get hormones. And then I went to the LGBT center, and I had my first consultation, and things really did start to get better.
Yep.
I mean, I still have like.
So this is pre-hormones, or now you get back to LA and you're starting to take the hormones.
Yeah, I get back to LA. I'm starting to take the hormones.
Which ones?
Testosterone.
Which one though? See, you don't know this, but this brings our whole series full circle, because the very first one we did was about steroids, specifically me and steroids.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had a past history, which they interviewed me on the first of this series. So
Interesting.
So I went cypionate, enanthate,
right.
Sustodon.
I'm pretty sure it's cypionate.
Okay.
That sounds familiar to me. And I remember looking up that there were different kinds, and I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm taking that. I remember the first time I took it, it made me really hungry.
Yep.
That was good because I was having issues eating. And I just felt energized. I remember working out after that. It was like the best workout of my life.
I haven't taken them in a long time, but I really miss them. It all rings true. So yeah, you worked out like crazy. You were eating.
Yeah. I was using the men's bathroom.
Yep.
Which was scary, but no one looks at you in the men's bathroom, so it didn't matter.
Well, see, but you've got like there's like this great spy quality, because your vantage point on how the different genders do what they do is unique. It's that not like I have no idea. Yeah, I've got 3 daughters, 4 sisters. Still don't have any idea really what's happening. So what were some of the more salient kind of, like, if you had to write this as a book and you were like, yeah, okay, I made this transition and this is stuff I thought was kind of bullshitty before, but no, like, let me tell you. So you have more energy, you're working out. Were there any other markers that from your life as a woman you would go, wow, I had no idea?
Yeah, I guess so. I always thought like, oh, women and men aren't that different. Like, I don't get why, we have these differences so much. And then I started taking hormones, and I remember my music taste changed a little bit.
From what to what?
More aggressive, more... I remember my sister commenting, like, did you realize your music taste has changed? It's more, probably more aggressive, more beats. Like, I'm more into beats. Less emotional in a way. Like, I know a lot of trans guys who say, like, I couldn't cry after I started taking testosterone. That hasn't happened to me. But, like, you're not getting a period, like, every month. You're not having, like, it's, like, I think the difference is, like, as a woman, it'd be like, I'd expect to be really, really emotional for a week every month.
Right.
Whereas as a man, it was more like, any day I could be, like, more angry. Usually it was anger or like, impatient. It could be any day. Like, it could be just for a day. Like, it could just be for like a few hours. So that was one big difference too.
This is like therapy for me.
So I quickly, as I was transitioning, I quickly started to realize what I really wanted to do. It was like almost I created this space in my brain that had been occupying like being in denial about this had been occupying so much of my brain in this weird way for so long that it was like clarity had just come to me, like mentally, physically. And so I decided that I wanted to go to school for audio engineering and do like music related stuff. And so I went back to school for music production, and most of my teachers were men. It's a very like male dominated industry still. And I just remember like there was one woman in our program and she was treated so much differently than everybody else. And I just saw it so much clearer. Like I remember I didn't know anything. I was like just at the same level as this girl, like of not knowing anything. She didn't really know. She was kind of a beginner like I was in terms of production, but all the other guys had had experience. And I was treated like I knew everything because I was a man, and she was treated like we need to teach her like we need to explain it to her, like every step of the way. Whereas they'd talk to me, like my teachers would talk to me like, you know, and I'd just be like, I know. You know.
Now dating, because I was going to say, I'm sure they always ask about dating, but since you've never done an interview, they haven't asked you about dating.
Yeah. Dating, it's challenging, especially because like I am more passing, which is like what that means is that like if someone passed me by on the street, they would not necessarily be able to tell that I was a transgender man, whereas other people are less passing. And so it's hard because it's like I'll find somebody I like a woman that I like, and I'll worry if she knows that I'm trans or not. And then it's like I almost have to expose that about myself, like come out to them. And it kind of sucks because it's like, you know, normally people don't have to like expose something that they're worried that like they'll be rejected based just on the fact that they were like, oh, by the way, I'm trans. And then they're like not interested anymore. But the good thing is, like, I'm very out on Instagram. Like, I talk about my transition on Instagram. And a lot of the time when I meet girls, it's like, oh, do you have an Instagram? And then they see on there, like, that, you know, this is a trans man. And then they can decide if they want to continue with that or not. And, like, that's the same with dating apps now, I think, too, is, like, you can put, like, trans man and then... But then there's a worry that, like, you're going to be fetishized or something. You know, like, people are only going to be interested in you because you're trans. Like, they're into that. And that's a scary thing. That's why I don't really use dating websites. I would rather, like, meet somebody in person and see if I like them there first.
Well, for long-term things, because as African-American male, people fetishize African-American male. So for long-term things, it's a drag. You don't want to date somebody who's a member of a fan club, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, for shorter engagements, it's you know. But that's good. I like that. The gatekeeping, it just solves a problem.
Yeah, but I think my like market for women like would be bisexual women. Mostly because they're just more open and accepting, and they're more knowledgeable about the trans community, and they're into both genders. So it's like not, I mean, if you haven't necessarily like had the surgeries and stuff, it's not going to be as much of an issue. You know.
Knowing what you know now, looking back, is there anything that you would have done differently from how it was that it actually happened?
Well, I have met some families who have children that are 5 years old that are acting the opposite gender of their birth. And the families know so much more than I did 25 years ago that they are letting their child live as the gender they prefer. And their families are accepting it because it's more accepted. So if I could turn back the clock but know about the future, yes, I do everything differently. But given where I came from and the culture I grew up in and the environment in the early 90s, it wasn't the same as today. So I'd like to say yes, but I think it would probably have played out almost exactly the same.
Where'd you grow up?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I also have times where I think, man, if only like when I was 5 and I came out, somebody was like, great, let's have you talk about it in therapy, or like, let's, you know, explore this and like focus on it. And then I could have like stopped, I could have like been taller or whatever, you know, like I could have looked more masculine because I would have grown up as a man and not gone through female puberty. But then I have times where I'm like, actually, it's really cool because I got to live as a woman and a man, and I got to be raised as a woman, and now I can talk to women. You know, like now I really understand women. really well. And so like, that's cool. Yeah. And so I kind of flip back and forth of like, you know, I wish that like a long time ago things were different. And then I'm like, wait, no, actually this is really cool and everything happened for a reason. And that's how I got to this place.
Cool.
I have to go back and say one thing. One thing I wish I had done differently is knowing that those boys, I knew that those boys had threatened to bomb Dylan and the whole family. Mm-hmm. And I thought by getting him out of that situation was enough. Mm-hmm. But in retrospect, that's when I should have found a therapist. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. Mm-hmm. It took years before I realized how really impactful that episode was in Dylan's life.
You see, this is where I know I'm a New Yorker, because I thought you were going to go a completely different. That's when I realized I should have gone to that school with a baseball bat.
I was expecting something like that.
Well, believe me, the thought crossed my mind.
Right. Okay.
Even in California.
Right. Well, thank you guys for taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
So that's Karen, Dylan. They just rolled on out of here, making this our fifth in a series of OZY Confidential. From my head and my heart, my mouth to your ears, know this. Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I am Eugene S. Robinson, your host. This is OZY.com, OZY Confidential, for the surprising, the shaking, the stunning, the shocking. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. Come back. Next up on OZY Confidential, we travel hundreds, thousands, 10, we can't say. We travel a certain number of undisclosed miles to an undisclosed location where we called a phone and got another number and went to another place, much like a scavenger or a snipe hunt, to meet a Mr. Jim Wesley Rawls. It's Jim Wesley, Rawls, or Jim Rawls, Wesley. I'll explain it all later. He's the head of the American Redoubt Movement, survival blog guy, and a firm believer in the fact that we're all going to hell in a handbasket. Next up on OZY Confidential. Shh.